Alright, so a new talking point has come forth from the recent chapters of Apocalypse of the Gods. Who is truly stronger, Shiva or Indra? And we're going to talk about everything that goes into that. Before that though, make sure you subscribe as always, drop a like on the video, and of course, shout out to the members. Now, Shiva versus Indra is actually very simple. We know that Apocalypse of the Gods is a prequel manga to the main series, right? So all the events that take place here happen before Shiva steps foot into the arena for his fight with Raiden. With that being said, we have numerous statements that call Shiva the strongest, right? We have statements outright at the end of the Rudra Shiva fight where Rudra says, without a doubt, you're the strongest amongst us, with all the strong players around. They all agree with it, so that's fine. We have that set in stone. He was the strongest at that time, but that doesn't mean that Indra couldn't have got stronger, because that's the talking point, right? The talking point is Indra now, after Shiva says he doesn't know how strong Indra is currently, and that he believes that Indra has gotten stronger since those days way back when, Indra now may have surpassed Shiva. That is what people are talking about. Indra then gave us his goal that he wanted to surpass Shiva, and he wants to surpass Shiva one day. So thus, he honed his specific preemptive strike and his lightning fast counter. Together they combined create Vajra, which is the technique that he's worked tirelessly to perfect. They obviously haven't fought, and they obviously don't know how strong each other are in their current states. But Indra 100% believes that he has trained the technique to at least close that gap. That's also corroborated by the assessment of the assassination gods, as they said that they believed that Indra was once a step behind Shiva, but now that does not seem to be the case. Now that is their assessment. We don't know how they got that information. Now, if we go back to early chapters of Ragnarok, when Shiva was initially going to fight in round 2, he was announced by Heimdall as the ultimate god of the Hindu Pantheon. Now, that's the same title that Thor was given, the ultimate. We know that Odin is the supreme god, so he's the one that's in charge. The ultimate was in reference to their capabilities as a warrior, as even Thor is stated to be the strongest in the Norse. So they even potentially have him over Odin that we know of now. Of course, that wouldn't include primordial Odin. That's obviously something that is different. He's called the ultimate, but that is by Heimdall, right? Then there's numerous other statements though that say he's the peak. He's got 1,115 gods all behind him that he has to carry. But then the thing that's damning is this statement right here, where Indra himself says this is our top dog's fight. Let's see it through, right? And he even talks about it in Apocalypse, like we all knew, he was the strongest, we all know this. So even after the events of the Apocalypse of the Gods tournament, which is when this statement is made, Indra does consider Shiva the top dog. Now we obviously don't know the events and how this is all going to play out in this tournament with Indra. We don't know what feats he's going to show, but we know that his mindset post-tournament is that Shiva's the top dog. Now I guess if you really wanted to get into it, you could potentially say he's being cautious because he doesn't know who's the strongest because they haven't fought, right? You could potentially take that. But there's a few key details you must note. One, the announcers and the gods that proclaim these statements during the main series tournament would have the knowledge of the Apocalypse tournament that just transpired. Therefore, they would have seen what Indra was capable of and his facilities throughout that match and still come to the conclusion that Shiva is the strongest. Now, that's especially pertinent for the other gods specifically pictured here, as they are all sitting there watching Indra's fights and talking about Indra's fights, right? And they're going to be around, potentially for all of Indra's fights to come. That's what you would assume. They all consider Shiva still to be the strongest. Now, the next piece of information that's probably even more important is that all this is only with the knowledge of base Shiva, or you could argue war dance Shiva, his dance mode, when he's actually fired up, but not Tandava Karma. Tandava Karma is something that Shiva himself said he had never seen, right? And then all the gods that were up there, part of his pantheon, were surprised by it. So he had never tapped into that, and he specifically stated that Raiden was the hardest fight he'd ever had in his life. That was his ultimate battle. Even so, we know for a fact that Raiden was above Rudra even. They also confirmed, these same gods that have fought Shiva confirmed that Tandava Karma mode is drastically stronger than the Shiva that we just encountered in the fight and the Shiva that they fought. So it's a massive power up. So even if you wanted to give Indra the most generous interpretation, and you want to say like a lot of speculatory things are out and he's just being humble, he's not taking the mantle because he hasn't definitively beat him, he has no knowledge of Tandava Karma. It's a massive amp. So even if you were to argue that they were relative and that people, the lines were skewed, Tandava Karma would automatically put Shiva clear of Indra. So there's no disputing that Shiva is stronger than Indra in my book. I don't expect a retcon to come on that, but you know, who knows? It's always possible. I just highly doubt it. The more interesting question is Indra number 2? Because we know for a fact that Rudra defeated Indra one-on-one. And an interesting thing that I saw when I was doing a little research into this topic is that Rudra, when he shows up, he's all bandaged up and he has like new scars on his body. This implies to me that Rudra has been fighting and training this whole time throughout as well. He left the Indian Pantheon, but who knows where he went or what he was doing. So that's obviously going to be headcanon. We don't know how strong he's gotten, but we also can't definitively say like, you know, he's gotten weaker or he stayed the same. We don't know. We also don't have the context of their fight. How high diff was the fight? You know, did it go extreme diff between him and Rudra? We don't know. But even if they did, with context that we do know, Indra and Shiva were running a gauntlet. They're clearly battle damage going into these fights, and yet their opponents are fresh. So Rudra went into this fight already damaged and still won. You could even make arguments for Rudra against Shiva because Rudra had an extra fight. They fought Varna and Agni, then he fought Indra, then they fought Brahma and Vishnu together. So potentially Rudra had to fight more and was potentially more damaged going into the fight against Shiva. So deciding who's stronger between the two of them is going to be pretty tough. Maybe we'll get a statement from Shiva on that. Maybe Shiva will say something along the lines of, oh man, this guy would give me a tough fight. So we'll see how that all plays out. But it is interesting to note looking back that when Rudra and Shiva won, they went through Agni and Varna first. Then Rudra fought Indra. Then they fought Brahma and Vishnu. So usually how these things work out is that they fight the stronger ones after. So by that logic, you would assume that Brahma and Vishnu were also stronger than Indra. But there is another statement that talks about like, you know, there was kind of factions and Indra was by himself. So potentially all these rivalries where nobody could truly be the all-powerful and nobody could truly claim the top. It was kind of a hierarchy of power where it was Agni and Varna together, Vishnu and Brahma together, and then Indra by himself. So Indra by himself could potentially be as strong as those two other factions, or, you know, whatever discrepancies are there. So I think that all works out. For right now, I think that, you know, he's probably the third strongest. I'll have to see more on if he is that number 2. Did he surpass Rudra? We'll have to find out. I don't know if we're ever going to get a clear answer on that. I would love to see Rudra watching from the shadows or a place outside the arena, like a little cameo, because obviously they built up like Shiva had not seen Rudra since, you know, the old days, which is really probably the main reason why he's not in the tournament. Because like looking at this actually could have been insane, like retroactive foreshadowing, because it would have been like, wow, the Apocalypse tournament didn't happen that long ago and he got all this damage from that tournament. That would have been sick. But obviously they didn't want to like mess with the fact that, you know, him and Shiva are meeting each other again after Shiva's fight, and Shiva obviously would have seen him if he was in the main tournament. They didn't know where he was at. I hope we still get to see Rudra looking on, because obviously Rudra knows firsthand how strong Indra was, right? He was the one that fought him. So I would like to see him brought up, but we'll see if the authors want to dabble into that. Well, let me know your guys' thoughts on that. What do you think the hierarchy of power is within the Hindu pantheon in the Record of Ragnarok verse? Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.